Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to our How Do I, and I'm Reva with Quality Sewing and Vacuum, and today we are going to make fabric trays. Now, if you have any questions or anything, you can put them in the chat and then we'll try to get those answered for you. But this is a tray that I made a very long time ago, and we're going to talk about some of the differences. But what's really cool about a fabric tray is that it's completely flat to store, and then you fold up the edges and simply tie the corners together, and then you have created a tray with sides that you can use for the holiday season or whatever it is that you're wanting to do. So we're going to walk through this, and then later you'll be able to find in the information brief, kind of like a how to figure out your sizing and everything like that. It's just a brief little recap of what I'm going to tell you today, but we'll do more details here in the video. So when you look at that, make sure you come back to this part and hopefully you get your questions answered. But I mean, how cute is this? This is such a great little thing to use for the holidays. If you want to have for a specific purpose, maybe you want to put some cookies in it, or maybe you want to make a small one and put it on your dresser for jewelry or whatever you want to do. It also makes it a great gift. Now, there's a couple of differences between the two of these. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use fabric and we're going to use batting, and then I'm going to tell you how to choose the size of your to make your little tray, and then we're going to talk about ways to make them more rigid or more just tailor it how you want it to be. So first, let's talk, I'm going to put this guy down here, let's talk about the size. So when you're making a fabric tray, what you want to decide is what the size is that you want the base to be. Okay, so the one we're going to make today is going to be 8 by 8. This is a little bit bigger than that, but the one we're going to do is 8 by 8. Okay, you can make them rectangular, you can make them square, you can make them whatever you want them to be. Then you want to decide how deep you want your lip to be, and we're going to do 1.5 today. Okay, so my tray is going to be 8 inches wide and 1.5 inches in height. And so those are the two things that you need to know. Well, there is one more thing you need to know as far as measurements, and that's what type of seam allowance you're going to use. And I'm going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance today. Okay, so if we have 8 inches here, 1.5 here, and 1.5 here, that's 8, 9, 10, that's 11 inches plus a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. It's 12 inches. So I need a 12-inch square of fabric to make an 8-inch tray that has a 1.5 inch lip. Okay, you with me? Hopefully you are. And oh, by the way, this is a really fun project to do using embroidery or using quilt blocks. That maybe you have a quilt block that didn't quite make it into the quilt, or you're testing a pattern. This is a great way to use up those items and not let them be orphaned. It's also a very nice way to use up scraps of fabric, because it really doesn't take a whole lot of fabric to make one, and then just a little bit of ribbon. Okay, all right. Oh, and if you have snaps, I suppose if you have snaps, you could put snaps there instead. So that's always something you can do. Okay, so let's look at the fabric that I have. It's really super easy construction. We have 2 pieces of fabric that are the 12 by 12, okay? And then I have a batting piece that's 12 by 12. And actually I did cut this, well, he's not 12 by 12 because he has no seam allowance. So he's 11 by 11. And just a little bit less than that, I trimmed off a little bit, shaved off like 1/8 of an inch around, so there is enough so he could sit flat. And let me show you what I mean by that, just real quick. This one I made a very long time ago, and the front and the back are the same size. But since it turns up, right, it bends up, and what I have in here is thick, you notice, look at that, I have extra fabric on the front side. Okay, so this should have been cut smaller. So anyhow, that's just one of the reasons why I made the batting a little bit smaller. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is let me show you over here, and I'm going to bring my tools on over so I can use them. So what I'm going to do is figure out which fabric I want to be the inside. And I think I am going to do the candies for the inside. Now, my seam allowance is a 1/2 inch and my edge is 1.5 inches, so that's 2 inches. So I want to come around and mark at 2 inches. I want to mark a line. Okay, and again, I'm just using plain fabric here, which you definitely can do, or if you like, you can absolutely use fun fabric or quilt blocks or anything else you would like to use there. You can add trim to the edges, but we're just going to do the basic here, and then you guys can take off and do all the fun stuff that you want. But I'm just going to mark this around, and I hope you can see my little chalk line on there, and I'll hold it up in a second so you can get a better view. I'm trying to make it nice and bright for you. At home, you probably wouldn't do that much Choco marking because you can see it, but I want you to see it. Okay. Okay, so all the way around the edge, I have marked a line that I'm going to stitch on in a little bit. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to do. The next thing I want to do is on the tray, sorry, should have left this up here. On the tray, the part that folds up right here, we don't need any batting in the corners because that will make it more stiff. So what I want to do is cut the corners out of the fabric. And the lip of my tray is going to be 1.5 inches. So I'm going to place my ruler down at 1.5 inches in and 1.5 inches tall, and I'm just going to cut out a corner, and then I'll have my little 1.5 inch corner cut out. Okay, see how that is? Now let's do it a little bit faster because nobody wants to sit here and watch me cut 4 corners. So I am just going to take this, and I've already have the one there marked, so I'm just going to cut them off. Let's see if I got all the way into the corner. One thing that's fun about projects like this is that they don't have to be 100% exact, obviously. Okay, so there's my piece of batting that has the corners cut out of it. Now, what I want to do is I want to find the side of the back side of the fabric. So I'm going to take my back side of my fabric, and I'm going to use my bottom here. I want it to feel nice and soft. And I'm going to center this right here on my fabric. Because see, now you can see the seam allowance is outside the edge. And to get it to hold there, I'm just going to use a little bit of glue stick. You can also use Free Fuse, which I absolutely love. That's the fusible granulars, and that's great. So I'm going to just stick this down so my batting holds into place while we're sewing and turning it right side out and such. Okay? All right. So there he is. In fact, you can even run a little stitch around the sides to be able to secure that. And I'm going to do that real quick. And this little machine is the Baby Lock Presto 2, and it has an automatic needle threader, which I will use right there so I can thread my needle. Okay, so let me just run a quick stitch around the outer edge here, and I'm just going to put it on a center stitch, and I'm going to lengthen the stitch length a little bit just so I don't need it to be tight. I don't need to have a small stitch. I don't even need to do a tacking stitch or anything like that, or a tack at the end. Don't need to put a securing stitch in there, tie a knot. Okay, and I'm just going to just give it a couple little stitches here, kind of like a basting stitch, just enough to hold the batting into place while we're stitching with it. And I'm making the stitches a little bit longer so I can easily remove that because we don't want to have stitching in our way when you don't want it to show on the outside. Okay. All right, so now I've got that stitched down, so now it's not going to go anywhere. And now we're ready to sew our pieces together. So I'm going to turn this right side up, And what I'm going to do is I want to put in my ribbons. Now I have pre-cut my ribbon, and how you're going to do that is you're going to take your ribbon and you want to find where your batting ends, because this is 1.5 inches in from the finished corner, but it's 2 inches in from the raw edge of the fabric. So basically at 2 inches in from the raw edge of the fabric, we're going to adhere or attach one of our ribbons. Now each ribbon, or each corner I should say, needs 2 ribbons. So we're going to go ahead and put 2 on each corner. Now, one thing to know too about doing your corners or putting your ribbon on is that you want to make sure that your if you call this, here's the corner, you want, if this is 2 inches here, you want to be on the other side. You want to be on the tray side of the 2 inches, not the corner side. Because when we turn this right side out, you want to make sure that your little ties are on the edge of the finished tray side. Okay, so we'll just get this guy in there. And then we're going to keep going. All right, so do any of you have any holiday fabric that you're dying to use, but you just didn't know what to use it for? This might be a fun thing to do. I know I like to use mine during like Thanksgiving. There's some really pretty Thanksgiving embroidery designs that I want to use, and get that all ready. Okay, so just 2 more little ribbons and we'll be good to go. And through the fabric, I can actually feel the edge of that batting, so I know that I'm right in the right spot. Okay, so now that I have my ribbons all on there, we want to make sure that they're all inside and that they're not going to come and sneak their way out into the seam allowance. So I'm just going to gather them up, and you can pin them, or in this case, I'm just going to take a clip and just get them gathered up. Now, we're going to take our top and we're going to put, I should say I called it the top, but it's really the inside of our tray. And I'm going to clip that into place with the same clip. So I'm holding that ribbon in place while I put the clips in. And so you're going to see how quickly this little guy goes together. Now, since we have 2 inches from the edge of the raw fabric to the start of the tray, we have 2 inches here, 8 inches here, and 2 inches here. When you take those 2 inches off, you're left with 8 inches in the middle. And we're going to stitch all the way around, but we want to leave a gap so we can turn it right side out. And then that is how we're going to get it to the right side. And also, I'm going to show you an idea for stiffening your tray, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so over here, when you start stitching around the outside edge, you want to leave a hole, like I had mentioned. So let's start about here, and then you can sew into the corner. You really don't ever want to start on the corner itself. It makes it more difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here, and I'm going to find my 1/2 inch mark that's on my the bed of my machine, and I'm going to come down here. And now when we're sewing this, I am going to go ahead and give it a little bit of a back tack, because we do want to make sure that that is secured, because we're going to be manipulating it. We're going to be turning it right side out. So then you want to stop a 1/2 inch down, pivot, and then let's continue. All right, and I'm going to line those up a little bit more. It's really nice having markings on the bed of your machine or on your needle plate to know exactly where your 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch and other inches are on the machine. Okay, this one I need to go 1 more stitch. I'm not quite there. Okay. Now that one, you saw it went 2 stitches, so I'm actually going to pick this up and shift it over. So I raised the presser foot and just slid my fabric a little bit to the left, but I stayed right on that stitched line. So I'll start right back up at the right spot. So if you ever get off a little bit, it's okay. Just adjust it. Just fix it. All right. Just 2 more corners. Okay. Going too slow for me. Another thing that you're going to be able to do with this project is if you want to use decorative stitches to do the final stitching on it, that's really fun too. Okay, so this is my last one. I want to get, I don't know if you can see where the ribbon is poking out there. I do want to get and stitch down that ribbon and then use the back tack to secure it. Okay, or the reverse. Okay, so now we're going to turn this right side out. So let's come back over here and we're going to turn it right side out. But before we do, what we're going to want to do is decrease the bulk that's in the corner, because when it turns, it's going to be the opposite direction that we sewed. So all of this bulk is going to try to get into the corner. So it's great to trim that off. So I have trimmed off. Let me trim that off. And then another thing you can do is you can actually then angle out a little bit as well. So you make kind of a more of a wedge shape going into that corner. So let's do that on all of our corners. So there's one. And it doesn't have to be precise, but you do want to get as much bulk out of that corner as you can. Okay. And the last one right here. Then we're going to turn it right side out. Okay, good enough. So now, when you go and you're going to turn your fabric right side out, one thing that you want to be aware of is that the more you manipulate your opening, the more you might stretch that fabric. So I have found that it's best not to try to turn the fabric over and turn it out that way, but to come in, find the corner and push the corners in, and then grab the corners and pull them out. And then that way, it really doesn't stress that opening at all. And then take a point turner, and I don't know if you have a point turner like this, but this is great because it has little balls on the end. This one's actually the OESD turn and point tool. But then you can just gently nudge. You don't want to, really jam the corners in, out, I should say. You just want to just nicely tap it. And then that, whoops, see, don't push so hard. You go right through just like I did. And then we can come up here and get the next one, just gently put it out, and then we'll do the next one here as well. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to press it. But when we go to press, we're going to do a couple of things. I'm going to take this out because it's constricted. There's all our little guys there. What I'm going to do is press the edges all flat, but then I also want to turn under that 1/2 inch so we have a nice flat opening for that. And I feel that I did not get that corner out very well. He has some little bit more to go. There we go. Okay, so let's come over here and we're going to press. I found one more corner that I needed to address. There we go. Okay, so let's come over to the iron and we're going to set this down and give it a nice little press. And something's, oh, I felt something lumpy. It's my batting had turned. Let's make sure the batting's all flat in there and it goes right up to the seam allowance, so that's going to be great. Okay, so we'll press this, and this one that I'm using right here is actually flannel, so it's going to be really, really a lovely little little tray. Okay, and then I'm just going to bend under or turn under that seam allowance and make sure my edges are together. And then we're going to just press that into place. Okay, easy enough. And in your sewing room, don't you find it's convenient having an iron right next to your sewing? I love that. Okay, so now we're going to come back over here, and I think I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to remark a little bit. I don't know if you can see it or not, so I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Now I'm at the 1.5 because I used my 2-inch. My 2-inch was including seam allowance, so I'm going to actually come in here and just do the 1.5 inch, and I'm just brightening it up so you can see it, because I could see it just fine. But we're going to come in here and just make it a little bit brighter. Okay. And we're going to close up that hole in a minute, so don't worry about that. But let's talk about stiffening our tray. So right now, with the batting in there, it has some form to it. But it's going to be, you're not going to be able to pick it up. It's going to be really soft in here. So there's a couple of things that you can do. And let me show you a couple of things that I've got here. And I shouldn't put them on the floor, but I did. Okay, so let's talk about the original tray that I made. And I guess I'll show you here. So this tray actually has real cardboard in it. It's like corrugated cardboard. It's like this. Not my favorite one, not my favorite way to do it. It's very rigid, which is nice. So, I mean, it's really, really stiff, but it's so bulky in the sides. But you might consider, if you want to use cardboard in the bottom, that gives you a firm base to the tray, and then use something a little bit lighter in the sides. Okay? So one thing you can do is, I found some cardboard that was thinner. So it's not as thick as the corrugated cardboard, and that's going to be perfectly fine. This I have cut to just under 8 by 8. It's 7 7/8 by 7 7/8, but you can do 8 by 8, which is the size of the base of our tray. And then I did make side pieces that are the 1.5 inches tall by the 8 inches. So, and then I did just trim a smidge off of each side of that. So this could be the sides. This one here doesn't have anything in the sides. It's just the batting in here. But on the base, I have a stiffener, but it's fabric. See, it is not cardboard. What I used is this product, which is called Stitch and Shape. Okay, and it has, I don't know if we can get a in tight look right here. It's kind of like about an 1/8 or a 1/16 of an inch in thickness, and it kind of feels like a compressed felt or a batting or something like that. But this is fusible, but it will add some stiffness to your base of your tray. So I'm going to show you that one. And then also there's another product that is called Deco Magic. Now both these products are from Floriani, and this is just the remnants of one of the rolls that I have of the Stitch and Shape. It comes on a nice big roll. You can also get it in sheets. But this is called Deco Magic, and this stuff is great for all sorts of different things, including making checkbook covers, handbags, placemats, anything you want there. But it is a lot thinner. It has fusible on one side, but it will give a nice stiffness. So I think we're going to go with this one. And with both of them, I have also cut the edge pieces should we want to do that. But let me show you, let's go over to the iron, and I want to show you what these products look like when we press them. So you're going to use a dry iron with these, and this has fusible on both sides. This one does. So I'm going to fold that over because I don't want to get it on the iron. And the Deco Magic only has fusible on one side. So let me just press that into place. But again, just a dry iron. You're going to leave it for a few seconds, and then it will stick. And then what I'm going to do is, since this one is face down, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to press it from the side, because when you press something that has a fusible on it, the fusible goes toward the heat, so it works out really well to press from the side that has the adhesive. Now, you want to let them cool because the adhesive is still it's warm and then it's malleable. But you can see how that curly piece of Deco Magic is now nice and flat. But it's nice and flat, but it gives a nice stability without being overly bulky. So that's why people love using this for making handbags. And then this piece that had the stitch and shape in it, it is thicker, but it still has about the same amount of stability between the two. It's just one is much thinner than the other. Okay, so let's go back over here to our little tray, and I'm going to take my Deco Magic and I am going to slide him into our hole. Let's find it. So here's our opening right here, right? This is what we left open. If you're using a piece of cardboard like I showed you originally, you're going to have nearly the full 8 inches open here. This can fold and we can slip that in. So let me move these so we can get the angle over here. And I'm going to just slip this into our opening. And then I see where I've marked my my stitch lines around the edge. So I'm going to get this in there, make sure it's nice and flat. Looks like I'm pretty much there, but I'm going to move it over just a smidge. Okay, I think I'm good. I'm going to go back to the iron and we're going to press this guy into place. And then this will give a nice firm base to our tray. And then again, so if you're going to be doing a lot of pressing and you're trying to mark, make sure you don't use a friction pen because you'll lose all your markings if you press it. Okay. So the nice thing that I like about these trays is that when you make them, they're great, you can use them, but you don't have to worry about storing them because they store flat. So you can put them right in your linen closet or whatever, or in a box, and just have them nice and flat. Now, before you really want to manipulate it any, you do want to let it cool, but we're okay going to sew it. And what I'm going to do, I feel another lump right here, so let's go in here and let's go underneath our Deco Magic, and I want to smooth out that batting because I don't want any bumps or lumps in the batting. Okay. So let's do, since this is still cooling a little bit, what I want to do is just simply sew around the outer edge. So I'm going to show you again at the camera so you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to stitch just 1/8 of an inch all the way around the outer edge. And that gives a nice little decorative stitch, but it also is going to give me it's going to seal up our opening that's on our machine, on our project. So let's go ahead and we're just going to stitch all the way around. Now, if you want to, you can use a decorative stitch because that's really fun to do. But I'm just using a straight stitch. That's kind of how I like to close my corners, is just with a straight stitch. And I'm using that needle down function. Love that. And let me raise it up for a second. Had to adjust my fabric, so don't be afraid to move your fabric over a little bit should you need to. Make sure your ribbons are staying to the outside. Okay, one more stitch. Because this would be a bummer if you got this far and then you ran over your ribbons. Okay, last corner. Took my eyes off for a second, so I did lost my way a little bit. It's a little bit crooked, but you know what? It's okay. All right. Now, usually you wouldn't think about using flannel for something like this, but it actually works out perfectly fine. So don't be afraid to use whatever fabric you have on hand. And if you're going to make a two-tone tray like this at this size, you can get 3 out of 1/3 of a yard of fabric, 3 sides. So you would obviously need a front and a back, but there you go. Okay, so here I've got my top stitching done all the way around. I hope you can see that yellow thread because it's definitely not the color I would choose to use for this, for if it was for a home project. But now what I want to do is I'm going to stitch along that chalk line that I drew. And our chalk line is right at the edge of the Deco Magic. So we're just going to pop this in there and we're just going to stitch right on the edge of that. And what this does, the creasing is going to give the tray a natural place for the edge to turn up or to bend, because you need the tray to turn up and over. So you have it will have a nice folded edge. I don't know if you noticed on the one with the purple flowers, it was a little bit floppy, but that's because I hadn't pressed it. And well, I had pressed it flat, but I'm going to show you how you would press this to get it to really hold its shape nicely. And if you want it to have really stiff sides, then you would put the Deco Magic inside the edges as well. Okay, so here we come to the edge of here, and I'm just using that Choco liner. It's a Clover Choco liner, and that will just brush off, so I'm not worried about that at all. I'll give it a little bit of a reverse right there and cut the thread, and then I'll do thread management later, which trimming my edges at all. Okay, so let's go to the iron again. So here is my tray. I've got it stitched all the way around here and all the way around the outside. Again, if you want to put a quilt block, anything in there, you can. Now, we want this to fold up, but it's going to be a little floppy. Okay, so to help it be a little bit right where you really want it to turn, go ahead and fold it up and give it a good press along that stitch line. And this will help give the fabric the memory that it needs to maintain that crease. And then I go to the opposite side, not the next side. I didn't just go from one side to the one that was next to it. I went to the opposite side, so that way the first side has time to cool a little bit before we press the other side. And since I'm waiting for it to cool a smidge, I'm going to take out my I have those stitched lines on the back where the batting, where I had stitched down the batting. You can just simply take those out, and then you don't have those stitches anymore. And I'll trim my threads. Let's see, there was one that was really showing. I think it was on this side, like this one. See, there's my that stitch that I used to tack the batting into place. And then if you want to really make sure nothing's going to go anywhere, then you can run a decorative stitch along the edge as well. Okay, let's get that. And also stitching that around the 1/8 of an inch on the outside of the edge also helps hold that batting into place. Okay, so now let's go to the opposite sides, and I'm going to fold that up and give it a nice press. And then we'll do the other side. And we're about done. And while that's sitting there, I'm going to trim these threads off so it'll look a little bit better. I got one more right here, don't I? Okay. All right, so we should be good. Now, all we need to do is fold up the corners and just tie the corners in, and then that will secure that corner together. And that we did, remember, right at the edge of the ribbon is right at that 8-inch mark, because we came in 2 inches from the edge. There's a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and 1.5 inches is the height. So 2 inches gives us this nice little tray. I was just thinking of an idea. I just went to a bridal shower, and there's a new thing some of you may know about it. I didn't know about it, but people ask for the gifts not to be wrapped, so that way people can see what the gifts are, but there's not the time taken with opening all the presents, and that there's more community time and chatting than there is sitting and watching the bride open up the presents. So this is something you could do if you wanted to make a gift, and then you could put it in a tray. So this is our how the tray has turned out. So it's really doggone cute. It's ready for if you want to make cookies and send them. And look at that, with the Deco Magic in the bottom, it's given it a nice little base. And then with a little bit of pressing, you can see that my edges here would fold up better. But you can use leftover embroidery. You can use quilt blocks. You can even plan it and use it, plan an embroidery. It doesn't have to be leftover. But like this one, I planned the embroidery for that one. But there's lots of things that you can do for these little trays. Perfect for holding toiletries and little gift items, or even your jewelry. Make them big enough, then you can hold your fat quarters. So lots of fun. So make sure to join us next time for our next fun adventure in our How Do I series.